The hit game show Jeopardy and the former host, the late Alex Trebek, are known to many around the world. The popular show has been running for decades now and has spawned numerous spin offs, and, for the topic of discussion today, video games. The Nintendo 64 version of the game was panned upon release and still catches some flack these days, but is it really that bad?
Sorry, wrong. Anyone else?
Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. Let's get into it. Danny from the Famicast here. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Sound off in the comments down below, and we may read it out on our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. Of course, you can find this in written form over on our website, famicast.com. Also, special shout out to our awesome patrons for their support and continued understanding. Now, today, though, we're diving into Jeopardy on the Nintendo 64 in this retro review. Now, just a note here, if you're unfamiliar with Jeopardy, like let's say if you didn't watch it growing up, you didn't live in North America or whatever, the premise here is pretty simple. I mean, basically, it's a quiz show. However, instead of answering the questions, you're first provided the answer. Then you respond with the question, basically using what is or what are, something like that. And it might sound kind of confusing, especially if you weren't brought up with it, but I think that's the main difference between this and other similar game shows around the globe. Now that you kind of have a frame of reference here, let's go ahead and dive into the N64 version of this game show. Jeopardy may lack modes per se, but you do have the ability to play by yourself or with a total of 3 players, which is the maximum number of contestants on the real show. Before entering the game, you have a few options. You can select from the following. You can choose your computer opponent's skill level, that's at easy, average, or expert. You can mess around with the player settings, and here you can choose how many human or computer-controlled players you'd like to play with, and after that you can select your character from 6 that are available. If you're playing single player, the opponents will be selected at random. Response entry options. Now, there are 3 of these here with loose spelling accepted, computer-assisted responses, or the exact spelling required. Question difficulty level. Now, there are 3 options here as well. Easy, questions only, easy and average questions, or easy, average, and expert questions. And the response display settings, so after an incorrect response, the computer can either display the correct response or not display the correct response. Now, for most of my time with the game here, I just went ahead with the default settings for difficulty, which is average skill level, the computer-assisted responses, easy and average question, and the correct responses to be displayed if the computer makes an incorrect response. Upon hopping into the game, you are treated with a brief clip of Trebek, who introduces the contestants. Kind of.
Game of answers and questions. We know who the contestants are, so let's go.
And then the topics for the first round. Now, there are a total of 2 sets of questions, basically 2 rounds, and a final Jeopardy question. And also there's these things called daily doubles in each round as well. Now, just to note, the daily doubles are hidden on the board at random, with 1 in the first round and 2 in the second. So basically with this thing, contestant can try their hand to answer this and potentially get more cash than usual, if they answer correctly. After a question is chosen, there is this 10-second lockout period to give contestants some time to read the questions. Now, this is indicated by a timer on the bottom of the screen. Now, once the time is passed, players are free to try their luck at the question. Now, typing here is pretty much what you'd expect, but playing with computer-assisted responses, you can actually see some suggestions right above your keyboard here. If you agree with what the CPU is suggesting, pressing R will autofill the rest of the response. Now, I found this to be quite handy as it can save you quite a bit of time. When you're doing this, I mean, you do only have about a minute to input your responses, think about and input your responses, so this is pretty nice. Now, playing with a mix of easy and medium level questions was pretty enjoyable for me. I mean, of course, with the game being released in early 1998, some of the questions might be a bit tough. If you're not familiar with some of the categories here, obviously. Now, given that the game was targeting a little bit of an older audience, I think some of the more pop culture questions are geared towards those who probably weren't kids at the time. Now, specific questions about like TV shows or huge events from like the 1960s or something like that are well outside my wheelhouse, but your mileage may vary. Like I don't think I had it captured, but one time there was asking some questions about some TV show and who appeared on it in like 1963, and I have no idea what that is. So just be warned, this type of stuff can appear here. Now, even with all that said, I found the default settings here to be pretty good, for the most part. Some of the responses call for some very specific phrasing or word choice. Like there was one about the Old Testament talking about When God came to talk to Moses, it's supposed to be, I put in like bush because of the way like it was kind of worded.
Sorry, wrong. Anyone else?
But they were looking for burning bush. So that was kind of annoying. Typically speaking, the CPU suggestions can really help you avoid making these kind of mistakes as long as you're at least somewhat close. Honestly, here too, I think the multiplayer aspect of the game seems to be pretty fun. I don't have anyone around to check this out with me, unfortunately, but if you have some similarly minded buddies, I think Jeopardy might make for a fun game night. There's no getting around it. I think the visuals in Jeopardy on the Nintendo 64 are pretty underwhelming. I mean, from the static 2D contestants to the simple game board, developer GameTech came nowhere close to making full use of the Nintendo 64 hardware. And given the nature of what they're trying to replicate here with the game show, I could kind of understand this to an extent. I think it would have been nice to see a little bit more effort put into maybe perhaps some kind of 3D models for the contestants, or at least better looking 2D versions or something like that. At the same time, if GameTech went all out making 3D models for like these in-game characters, that might have actually aged even more poorly. So I don't know. I still would have liked to see them take a chance. Audio here too, it's also a little bit muffled, and the tiny video clips versus full screen are definitely due to limitations with the cartridge size, but still a bit of a disappointment. Now, despite the negatives, I think this game does have a bit of charm. I mean, sometimes it can be a bit humorous to essentially hear Trebek say how wrong you are.
Sorry, wrong. Anyone else? Wrong.
Even when you're actually pretty close to the correct answer. Now, I haven't played any modern versions of the game, and I know there are a few, but from what I've seen at a glance, some of these just seem to be going for more like a more broad quiz show type of appeal and not necessarily taking on the Jeopardy moniker in earnest here. I think that's a disservice to the franchise, and that's where the N64 version actually excels. Is it perfect here? No, well, of course not. However, the short video and audio clips of Trebek, I think the theme song and the overall presentation, despite issues with the system limitations, nail what makes Jeopardy what it is. Or what it was in the 90s in this case, I suppose. If you watched the show back then, I think this is going to be a real nostalgia trip for a myriad of reasons. Now, despite bland visuals and audio, Jeopardy on the Nintendo 64 is an enjoyable game if you set the correct expectations. While the quality is laughable for the platform in some regards, it nails what makes Jeopardy Jeopardy. Now, are there better versions of the game out there? Yeah, probably. I think it's easy to dismiss this game just on the lackluster visuals alone. However, I think the presentation, with all of its flaws, nails the game show aesthetic. Now, if you have any nostalgia for Jeopardy as it was in the 90s, I think you should track this one down and pick it up if you can find it on the cheap. But let's go ahead and turn things over to you guys. Did you play Jeopardy on the Nintendo 64 back in the day? Or are you like me and just didn't try it out until much later in life? What do you think about it? Sound off in the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this one a like. If you feel that we've earned it, consider subbing to the channel. And if for some reason you just can't get enough of us, consider supporting us on Patreon for ad-free videos, exclusive podcasts, and more. For reviews of retro and modern games, a bi-weekly live podcast, event coverage, and more, keep it locked here to the Famicast. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.
Thank you for playing Jeopardy. Let's do it again real soon. Thanks, players. Good game. So long, everybody.